The World Affairs Council of Northern California is committed to engaging the public in the exploration of international affairs. The Council Schools program gives students the unique opportunity to meet with heads of state, ambassadors, and the academic experts who visit the Council. The following video is taken from our year-long Student Ambassador Leadership Group. Students were asked to take on the role of a country or group to discuss the effects of climate change and propose solutions. What they found was an incredibly diverse set of needs, perspectives, and obstacles to tackling climate change. Their solutions only represent a fraction of the answer, but the following presentations by the young leaders demonstrate that they are thinking broadly and are actively engaged in addressing some of the world's most pressing issues.
Okay, hi, I'm Liz Constantino.
I'm Lisa Chan.
I'm Aaron Phillips.
And basically our group, we're representing an NGO, non-governmental organization, in this case Oxfam, and we are going to talk about our country, who we provide food security, other aid to, and this country is facing negative effects of global warming in the case of desertification and mass human migration, and we're here to talk about the problems and possible solutions to combat this global crisis. So we're going to begin with our history.
Okay, so basically, first we would like to touch on the fact that Africa is right now it's getting drier and the climate change is really great there. So that's what the slide is about.
And Wolf Coleman, he is the chairman of the UN Food and Agriculture Organization's Climate Change Group, and he actually had made a very profound comment about global warming, which is occurring in Africa, which actually is repeated quite a lot. He said, Africa is our greatest worry. Many countries are already in difficulties, and we see a pattern emerging. Southern Africa is definitely becoming drier, and everyone agrees that there is climate change. We would expect areas which are prone to drought to become drier with climate change. And as we know, Africa, it's almost taken over by the desert in the north, and that desert is expanding, which is a very large problem.
So some of the areas that are most affected, Ethiopia, Zimbabwe, really basically where the desert lies right now, where the Sahara is, and then also along, primarily in Zimbabwe and along the lower eastern area. They've got lots of problems. They've got, water is a huge issue. Currently they've got Lake Victoria, or the biggest lake down there. It's got, the water's receding. They have no way to cleanse the water, especially after the giant war they had where they just basically polluted everything. And without that, they can't grow their crops properly. They can't drink. There's so many problems that they just can't handle without some support. So I have to go with that.
Right.
Next.
Basically, climate change is directly linked to desertification and biodiversity loss. All of them really are interlinked. You have climate changes, which are rapid increases and decreases in the temperature, which are causing really abnormal weather patterns. You can either have monsoons, just crazy, a lot of wetness, a lot of rain, or you can have prolonged droughts. And in the case of many African countries, especially Zimbabwe, you're having 3-4 seasons or years of drought, which is really disastrous to their crops and their way of life. Basically with climate change, as it's getting hotter, CO2 emissions are rising. It's leading to soil erosion, which is actually paving way for desert to be spread through changes in wind patterns, which then leads to biodiversity loss of plants as the deserts are encroaching. It's all one disastrous, intertwined plan. Next. Okay, I'll try and summarize this a little bit. It just goes on to explain more of the problems with global climate change. Basically, speaking specifically about desertification, what's happening is that more dunes are being pushed into urban areas, into crops and farmland due to the global warming impact of it. Basically, dunes, they're soft sand. Basically, when winds get changed, the soft layer of sand gets pushed around, and basically it takes off this protective layer of vegetation, so it's more palpable and more easier to move by the wind. And so the sediment is this dry sediment is moved into crop areas, ruining crops. And basically, it's leading to, loss of cropland, and also droughts, which are affecting many areas, not just in Africa, but also in Cuba, Cambodia, Australia, Afghanistan, Vietnam, Honduras, Nicaragua, just a lot of places. And the UN is actually saying that 16 nations currently are facing unfavorable prospects with their current crops. Basically, they're in desperate need of aid because their crops are really being ruined.
And in addition to that, Central Asia is just right next there. They're basically upcoming next with drying up the Aral Sea. They need, especially in the areas where they specifically grow lots of cotton, takes up huge amounts of water. They basically drain the Aral Sea, and in about 20, 30, 40 years, there's not going to be a sea left, and that's the water source for 5 nations. So that's basically going to become a giant desert in between Russia and Europe. So, next slide.
Okay, this, do you want to explain it?
Basically, this is just a map of where desertification is going in the highest. We have, obviously, Northern Africa. We've got it. Oh, what the heck?
No, they look similar. It's just changes in temperatures. Temperatures are rising, and as you can see, it's also getting, you can't really tell, but it's getting a lot more orange, which is a lot more hot, and that's in the desert. The desert is spreading. Next slide. Okay.
So one of the major ways we got there, obviously, is CO2 emissions, industrialization, and we're currently not helping that with our massive, especially in Eastern Europe and Latin America, US, everywhere. So next slide, please.
Okay, so the group we represent here today is Oxfam. Basically, we are a nonprofit NGO. Has been working with, the definition's at the top, I'll try and say it. We are a humanitarian group who works with humanitarian disasters, emergency situations for 60 years. It's international. Basically, it works for, its expertise is in water and sanitation, which is basically what we're really concerned with, especially with global warming. That's how much our budget is each year. So we have enough to fund solutions to our problems, which we'll get to. And then basically more information if you want to jot it down.
Next.
Okay. Where's Zimbabwe?
If you're, what is Zimbabwe?
No. So the nation we represent also today, specifically, we are working in Zimbabwe, or basically the nation is being truly affected by the droughts caused by global warming, where 4 million this year will need assistance from the international community. Yeah, like it says, food shortages are a result of climate change and add to the number of people actually moving away from the crops and farmlands and into major cities and just basically wandering around without a homeland because they're looking for food in better arable areas. Right, and this is just a quote. In Zimbabwe, crop production is low, and well, everyone who's poor is just getting poorer. Yeah.
Okay, so there are a few available options that we can do. One thing we can attempt, I mean, I'm sure we already tried this, like, you can early warnings for famine. Basically, if we think it's going to happen, we essentially send them massive amounts of food, really. Lots of grains, rice, things of that nature. And another way we would try, basically foreign assistance, or not foreign assistance, NGO assistance, we're going to send them experts to help them with agriculture, with water processing, things of that nature, and well, basically technology in general. And we're going to try and get them to use other sources of fuel other than coal and whatever else they have currently. Next slide.
Oh, actually, but before we do, but we want to not just spend more money trying to get fuel sources or from other countries. We're trying to use what they have. What? Okay. And what they have a lot of is cattle. So there's actually ways you can get biogas from cattle dung. So we want to help fund ways to find an effective way to use this, since I have a lot.
So what they need desperately is help with water purification. And it's one issue, especially with the lake. And we possibly subsidize farmers to grow different crops other than cotton, like I mentioned in the Aral Sea region. In addition, in places like Zimbabwe, where the president has really